When it comes to episodes focused on Edward the Blue Engine, most Thomas fans will instinctively gravitate towards stories such as Edward's Exploit, or Old Iron, and rightfully so. These are without a doubt Edward's most memorable episodes. However, when you ask a lot of fans what they think of Save from Scrap, most will simply tell you that they like it, and not much more than that. However, this episode, and the story it tells, is more significant than you might think, and so today, that's what I want to talk about. If you enjoy this video and want to see more like it, then be sure to leave a like, subscribe, and ring Toby's bell to stay notified for when I post new content. Now let's get started. So this is yet another slice of life story with a plot that is rather easy to follow. After some cheeky banter with Thomas,
"I'm going to the scrapyard today," Edward called to Thomas. "What? Already? You're not that old," replied Thomas cheekily.
We learn that there's a scrapyard in Edward's branch line, and one day whilst collecting a load of scrap, Edward makes a new discovery. He meets a new arrival, a traction engine called Trevor. Turns out that Trevor is scheduled to be broken up and scrapped in a week's time. Edward, feeling sympathetic to a fellow old-timer, is determined to help Trevor. He manages to convince the Vicar of Wellsworth to buy and save him. Afterwards, Trevor is permanently rehomed to the vicarage, where he happily spends the rest of his days working, whilst also being able to see his newfound friend Edward every day. On the surface, it's a very simple story with a happy ending. However, what makes this one special are the aspects and elements that it brings with it, and how it would ultimately shape the future of how we view the charming world of Sodor from this point on. First off, this story follows the Season 2 trend of establishing many new things that we didn't previously know about the island of Sodor and those that live there. The first new thing we get is an expansion on the relationship between Thomas and Edward. I've already gone in depth on their friendship in a previous video, so go watch that if you want to hear more. But to quickly summarise, in Season 1 you got the feeling that Edward and Thomas were genuine friends, as their interactions were a lot more pleasant than those with any of the big engines. There was an underlying hint at mutual respect between the two, which goes pretty deep if you know the lore from the books. Here in Season 2, we get a hint of what their dynamic is actually like. When Edward tells Thomas that he's off to the scrapyard, the tank engine teases him by saying that he's not that old. It's perfectly in character for Thomas to tease another engine, but here he does so without directly mocking Edward. It shows that he genuinely looks up to the old blue engine and still sees value in him. Thomas and Edward have a beautiful friendship in the series, one that is underappreciated. That reminds me, I really need to make a start on that Percy and Toby video. We also get an insight into how Edward's mind works, and that he truly does not see his age as a handicap.
"People say I'm old-fashioned, but I don't care. The Fat Controller says I'm a useful engine."
Edward really was the best choice of character to use for this type of story. He's an older engine who knows that he still holds value, and that even outdated machines such as himself can still prove to be really useful, which is emphasised even more by his determination to save Trevor.
"Broken up? What a shame. Broken up? What a shame. I must help Trevor, I must."
It shows us that Edward isn't just determined to prove and show his own worth, he's simply a very kind-hearted engine that wants to help everyone that he can. He's a true role model here. The second point as to what makes this episode so interesting is just how much world building that we get. We're introduced to Edward's branch line, several new human characters, the scrapyard, the vicarage, and of course, Trevor. Speaking of the new characters, this episode does wonders in showing us that there is a real human community on Sodor. Most stories don't tend to give this a massive focus, but this is the first time where the island's inhabitants feel like real people. This is the first time, and I'm pretty sure the only time, that we hear an engine's driver be referred to by their actual name.
What's the matter, Charlie? He asked the driver.
This was also something that we saw in the foreword of Edward's book. It really helps to further Edward's bond with his crew. Trevor is also a great inclusion, and I really like his character. He's a happy-go-lucky grandpa who really loves the joy and the energy that the younger generations can bring to the world, which is really sweet. Along with Edward and Toby, it makes him more connected to the humans of this world. There are a couple more points that are noteworthy about the human characters, but I'm gonna save that for the section where we discuss what you guys had to say. The final main thing that I want to bring up is how much this episode, and by extension Season 2, differs from Season 1 as a whole. Season 1 was very relaxed in its pacing and tone, mirroring that of the storybook world that it was imitating, which was appropriate and helped us, the audience, to get lost in this picturesque wonderland. It was a perfect way to introduce the real world to a fictional one. What Season 2 did was begin the transition from fiction to reality, making Sodor feel a lot more real and true to life. Many elements, such as the grittier environments and new locations, helped to push this. However, something else that the season, and especially this episode, did to further that effort was the tone and the types of stories that were told. Most of the episodes in Season 1 were genuinely light-hearted. However, with episodes like this one, we are forced to watch as the characters deal with very real-world and relatable issues. The most impactful one being the concept of death. This is the first time scrapping is ever mentioned in the series, and it's not implied or hinted at. They straight up tell us that Trevor is not only going to die, but he also knows when it's going to happen.
They're going to break me up next week.
Poor Trevor must feel like an inmate on death row, knowing that he's stuck in this rusty prison, whilst also knowing the day that he's scheduled to die, and there's nothing he can do about it. That shit has to get to a person. The fact that they went out of their way to dust up Trevor's prop adds more weight to this scene too, as it looks like he hasn't been looked after and has been neglected for some time. The whole phenomenon of scrapping and escaping the Cutter's torch would be brought back and expanded upon many times throughout the series. To think that such a staple for the series got its roots this early into the show's lifespan is really quite something. Now, there are a couple more points that I could have brought up, but I honestly feel that you guys relayed them out better than I ever could have when I made the community post asking you all what you thought of this episode. So let's highlight a couple comments and see what some of you had to say. Right, so first we've got a comment from Flying Dorito who said, "It's a story that helps to define Edward's character, as well as introduces the dynamic between him and Trevor and further develops his relationship with Thomas, firmly establishing them as a duo that's playful and understanding of each other." Very true. Thomas sees the value in Edward, and for us to see that during the classic season, where he is at his most dickish, is really something special. Thus spoke the struggler caught my eye with this next one. This episode was always one that stuck out with me as a child, truth be told, but now as an adult, I find it far more profound and layered. It was a perfect story for Edward, and really helped to show both Trevor as a character and the lengths the people of Sodor go to save and preserve those deserving of it. Exactly. We all know by this point that the Fat Controller is a kindred soul that will save any and all engines and the like that he can. But this episode shows that the inhabitants of Sodor also share this mindset. It's really something of a special community. Speaking of communities, Bianca24601 blew me away with this one. One of my favourites, both as a child and as an adult. As well as showcasing the caring side of Edward brilliantly, I love the use of humans throughout this story. Not only is the vicar a friend to Edward and his driver and fireman, but Edward mentions thinking about all his friends who loved engines. We also get what feels like a genuine friendship between Trevor and Jem Cole, and the humans all interact realistically with each other too. Edward and Toby are the two engines that I feel are most connected to the human inhabitants of Sodor, and where Toby is more linked with the Hat family, Edward really feels like a part of the community. The Trevor follow-up, Edward, Trevor and a Really Useful Party, exemplifies this for me. It all just makes the world of Soda feel more real, and that's a large part of why I still love the show as an adult. Beautifully said, Bianca. This is why I chose to not go fully in depth on the human aspect of the story, as I believe that Bianca summed it up beautifully. It's just one of many things that make me continually appreciate this series more and more as I get older. Alright, I think that'll do it for today, guys. What do you all think of Save from Scrap? Are there any major points that I missed? Let me know your perspectives down in the comments. This one was especially fun to sink my teeth into, and I hope you all enjoyed watching just as much, if not more, than I did making this video. As always, thank you very much for watching, and until next time, I've been Cinders and Ashes UK, you've been awesome, and have a great day. Bye!